CBS Sports HQ presented by NerdWallet. NerdWallet, turn to the nerds. And we are about to turn to our two football nerds in just a second. Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn standing by. I'm Chris Hassel. We're going to pick every game against the spread. We're down to only 4 games in the NFL this week in the divisional round. Let's start with Saturday's games. Pete's Bengals, 3.5-point road dogs at Tennessee, the number 1 seed, playing in the postseason for the first time, as are the Packers. Both those teams got the first-round byes last week. Packers hosting the 49ers. That is on Saturday night. So, let's get the fellas in here. Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn. And are we keeping the regular season win-loss totals into the postseason?
We have at this point, but no ground was made up last week. I believe we were both 2-4.
We had bad weeks.
Bad weeks.
Bad weeks, both of us.
Yeah. So for the season, Pete Prisco has a 3-game lead on Brady, and we have 4 games today. So still an opportunity to make that up.
Can I just tell you my strategy right now?
Pick opposite of
down.
Pete?
Well, I'm putting all the chips are in.
Oh.
I'm going all in this week. It's going to be interesting to see how we see these games because it's not even like I'm just picking opposite to pick opposite. I think there's a few games you could be torn about in regards to the spreads. It's tough picks. It was obviously tough for us last week, but I'm going all in. I was made aware of what your picks were before I got here, so I like how this could shake out.
I saw something where this is one of the 4 games, the spreads, the total of the spreads is one of the smallest we've had in this divisional round. And
should be great matchups. Yeah. Not a single double-digit spread, not a single two-score spread.
Last week was awful, so let's hope.
It was 4 of the 6 games were really bad. But this week, most of the spreads are somewhere between 2 and 4 points. There is one game where the spread is 6. Let's start with the first game of the weekend. It's Saturday afternoon on CBS. It's the Bengals and Titans. Pete Prisco has been banging that Bengal drum for years now after they drafted Joe Burrow. So this is your opportunity to pick the Bengals to go to the AFC Championship game.
Oh, I would love to, but I'm not going to.
Oh, come on, Pete.
Titans.
Wow.
Yeah, I just think there's a real problem here, and it's whether they can block that defensive line of the Titans. The Titans have 3 guys with 8 sacks. They're the only team in the league, at least 8 sacks. The only team in the league with that. And I think there's problems on the offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals. They played well last week, but Isaiah Prince at right tackle, almost the spinning top of the week this week, had a real rough go of it last week against Max Crosby, and I think it's going to be a problem on that offensive line for Joe Burrow. On the other side, Larry Ogunjobi being out is big for the Bengals. Their run defense isn't great to begin with, and this is a team we know that wants to run the ball.
Not bad either,
with Derrick Henry getting back in there, I think they're going to pound the football. And yes, I am picking against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm picking the Tennessee Titans.
And not only to win, but to cover the 3.5.
You're just a walking contradiction now.
I'm not a contradiction.
Let me get back
I think
to
it's
this,
a hedge.
I want to bring up a point that you made about the defensive line and 3 different players having 8 sacks or more. Go back and comb through where those sacks came against who, right? You look at that division, Jacksonville, Houston,
the Rams,
the Colts. Well, the Colts were banged up though for a period of time. So I'm just saying when you're looking at the teams that they played where they got some of those sacks and they were to make hay, some of those came versus their lesser opponents. So I understand what you're saying. I do think the Bengals offensive line though is much improved from where it was a year ago. They've played well this season. Give them some credit. It will be a tough matchup for them. I think there's a number of things at play here though. The biggest question you have to answer is Derrick Henry going to come back and be able to be exactly what we saw the last time he was out there in the field, which was a legitimate MVP candidate? I have a hard time believing, after all that time off, it's a Jones fracture for a guy that big, that explosive, to be able to be close to 100%. It just doesn't seem possible to me.
Do you think he needs to be 100% to beat the Bengals in this game?
I think so too, because here's the game plan every time you play a runner like Derrick Henry. They'll try to set the edges and get him to run and stop his feet. And they take away a run and they put it on this guy. They put it on Ryan Tannehill to beat you throwing the football. Now, he finished the season strong. Last time out, played great. Up until that point, though, without Derrick Henry, wasn't the case. I think my concern for this game is if this becomes a track meet and you're going to try to go blow for blow with Joe Burrow and that explosive Cincinnati Bengals offense, that's not a formula for the Tennessee Titans to win. So I'm calling it right now. I'm not even saying that the Bengals cover the 3.5 because I am taking the 3.5 points. They outright win and they go to the AFC Championship game.
Wow. See, then my pick might be coming true then.
I told you this before the
See,
playoffs
he's hedging.
started. They have the easiest, clearest
I can't lose.
It would be the first time they've ever won a road playoff game in Bengals history. So they
That's
are
amazing.
up against history.
0-7 all time on the road in the playoffs.
You talk about the Titans offense, and we haven't seen those guys together much this year. Any of them. I mean, how many games have they actually played together? All of them healthy. And I'm not talking about a guy start and go out.
I don't know. This is the time, though, you're throwing them out there and saying, well, it's all going to come together
Well,
at
not
this
just-
moment.
He's on the field. He'll be on the field.
Sure.
You have A.J. Brown, who's missed time and had COVID and everything else.
Julio
Jones. And now they're all back out there. So I think that'll make it easier. I just think the Cincinnati not having Larry Ogunjobi will hurt them.
Sure.
Their run defense. It will hurt their run defense. And I think they're going to be able to control the clock and hit some shots down the field. I think the Bengals will score. I just think that they're going to see Tennessee score as well.
This game, to me, is all about how it starts. If Tennessee gets off to a good start, Derrick Henry's running the football well, they're controlling the clock, controlling the game, I think that plays in the hands of Tennessee. They're going to end up winning this game. I don't even know still that they'll cover the 3.5. These two teams are pretty evenly divided, in my opinion. If Cincinnati gets off to a hot start, they continue to ride the momentum of this young group that doesn't know any better at this point. I think that's where you got to worry if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, because I don't know that they want to be able to play from behind. I don't know if they want to put Ryan Tannehill in that position, especially with this Bengals defensive front has been rushing the passer. They've really improved the second half of the season.
Hendrickson's health is another issue here. I mean, we got to keep an eye on him, too. He's got to be in the game.
For a guy that every single week just says, get the shot, let's go, we're trying to win a Super Bowl. It's crazy to me that you start to bring in some of this.
Well, I mean, I think they all should play, but we got to, whether they will or not, that's a whole nother issue. If it was me, I'm taking a shot and I'm on the field. I'm in the playoffs.
You can't take a shot for the concussion protocol, though, can you?
No.
I didn't think so.
You end up like him if you do.
I've had a concussion treated with Toradol, though. I have had that given me.
That's what your issue is, then. We finally got to the root of it.
Back in the day when you could beat that, there was no concussion protocol really back in Brady's day. But John Breach, by the way, who's a Bengals fan,
and
lives in Nashville.
Britney Spears fan as well.
Pick Six Pod contributor. He says there's going to be about 30 to 40% Bengals fans in the stands in Nashville.
I don't believe that.
It's not a far drive.
30. I don't think it'll be 30 to 40, but there's a lot of Titans fans. They've been around for a while now. They're passionate. I don't think it'll be that many.
All right, that's on CBS.
And by the way, Breach's father kicked for the Bengals, so
right.
That's why he's a Bengals fan.
Exactly. He'll have some kicker props for us, I'm sure. 4:30 Eastern Time on CBS and the Paramount Plus app this Saturday afternoon. The Saturday night game is the biggest spread of the divisional round. It's only 6 points here. It's the Packers at home. Going to be single-digit temps at Lambeau Field. It's Aaron Rodgers against Jimmy Garoppolo. Pete, do you bring out the quarterback scales here?
Well, it's hard for me to do this to my paisan, but yeah, whoa!
Okay.
Boom, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's easy.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Garoppolo is better than people give him credit for. And he made a terrible throw the other day. Awful. But other than that,
Was it the shoulder, though?
He played pretty well in that game. And the shoulder's bothering him, and he's missing time in practice. But no, you talk about quarterbacks. Look, you could take the scale out against Aaron Rodgers, and it would pretty much go boom all the way around, with a few exceptions. So I get it. The quarterbacks are the definitely disadvantage to the 49ers. But the big disadvantage is this is a third straight road game for the 49ers. And they've all been tough, have to win the games. That's hard to do in the NFL. The Rams, they had to win.
We didn't say that about the Bucs last year when they went on to win the
Bucs did
Super
it, yeah.
Bowl. Why are you using
Right.
it now?
Because I think that's tough. Because one was a regular season game, and now you're going on the road, and you got to go on the road again. You got to go on the road again, and you're going against the number one seed on the road. It's tough to do, and I think it's going to be a challenge for them. But the biggest problem, I think, is this: their defensive line has been outstanding all year, and particularly in the last half of the season. And we've seen it the last two games. But if you block them, you beat them. It's pretty much that simple. With Aaron Rodgers throwing the football, if you block, you beat him. Bakhtiari is back. That's big for that offensive line. And the offensive line has played pretty well in front of them despite all the injuries and everything else. And I think they will block them, and they will throw down the field and have success doing so. So I'm going to take the Packers minus the points. This was a hard game for me because I have nothing but the utmost respect for a nasty, tough, physical team in the 49ers.
Yeah, a lot of things there, right? You talked about all these away games. They didn't feel like away games when they were in L.A. and then in Dallas. It seemed like there was a big San Francisco contingent. Now, Will in Green Bay, you're right. This will feel like an away game for the 49ers. I would not lay a bet right now on this spread. You don't necessarily know about Nick Bosa with the concussion protocol. That's a concern. We talked about Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder and thumb. Those are issues too. And I think you want to see if this line maybe moves even more so where you might get another half-point
Warner.
And Fred Warner, who is practicing, but he's limited. But all three of those injuries are huge in this matchup. So that's something to keep an eye on. I would play the under. I think that's a safer play in this case. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. The conditions, they'll play a somewhat of a factor, but I think both teams are going to want to run the football. Remember the last time these two teams got together, though? Elijah Mitchell, who's been hot for the 49ers, didn't play in that game. He'll be a part of this one. It does seem like the passing game has gotten into a rhythm and a flow now, too. And then Deebo Samuel, the wild card that he is, teams trying to figure out where he's going to be, what he's going to do with the football. He's kind of that X factor, I think, for the 49ers. So if you made me lay a bet right now, I'll go ahead and take the 6 points. I don't feel great about it. I think the under is the best play of all of this. I'm with you, though. Aaron Rodgers at home, they're going to win this game. It just comes down to how much. And I do wonder if Eric Armstead, who's been hot right now, and Bosa get in there, if they get pressure on Rodgers, it could end up being a little tighter game than you might want to admit.
Well, Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith might be back in this game, too. There's a possibility for that. And if they get those guys back on the Green Bay defense, that's a big
But you know the Green Bay's weakness. It's stopping the run. In particular, when you get on those edges, they're light on the edges. Right. You know that's what Kyle Shanahan's going to want to attack. And remember, the last time these two teams played, remember who came in, kind of made his debut? Trey Lance. I wonder if he'll play any factor whatsoever as kind of a wildcat quarterback, adding to that rushing mix, taking off some pressure off of Jimmy Garoppolo and adding to Elijah Mitchell in the backfield. That's kind of another wild card that we could see in this game.
If the 49ers run the ball consistently and they can do it, move the chains, they have a good chance to win the game. I really believe that because everything they do is predicated off that run. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback when you run the ball and they get all those boot action and get the tight end sneaking out and the fullback. But I think they're going to play good defense in this one.
To your point, if you block the front for the San Francisco 49ers, what you're basically saying is they can't match up on the back end. And that was the reality, too, with Devontae Adams. They could not take him away. They couldn't stop him the first time around. They'll have a hard time if they can't get pressure on this time, taking away Adams as part of that mix. The big question is, will there be a handshake after the game? Because the first time around, it seemed like there's some bad blood based on the reports or rumors that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were trying to steal Aaron Rodgers over to the 49ers before the season even started.
No, because I think if Green Bay wins, he'd be glad to go over and shake his hand. See?
I've been 2 in a row.
49ers, the only road team to win on Super Wildcard weekend. The Packers, the only team that hasn't lost at home all season, and they have home field advantage in the NFC postseason. These guys are going right up, button heads against each other in this divisional round. Brady likes the Bengals. Pete likes the Titans. Brady likes the Niners. Pete likes the Packers. And oh, by the way, Brady doesn't just like Cincinnati to cover the 3.5 points on the road at Tennessee. Brady likes Cincinnati to win the game outright. When we come back, we move to the Sunday games. The Rams taking on Tom Brady and the defending champion Buccaneers. And Patrick Mahomes faces Josh Allen in an AFC title game rematch. Our playoff preview is presented by NerdWallet, looking at the Sunday games in the divisional round. Bucs and Rams, mid-afternoon. Buccaneers favored by 3. Chiefs and Bills on CBS 6:30 Eastern Time. You can also watch it on Paramount Plus. It's time for Pete Prisco's Spinning Top of the Week.
There it is.
It's been a while. It's been a month or so since I've been able to do that.
I know. There's so much energy in that. That was amazing.
Pete, it's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer or 2 or 3?
Yeah, or 3. And I will highlight a couple others on that offensive line as well, although they weren't the spinning tops for reasons.
Spinning tops
forward.
of the week, even though they won.
not see Tristan Wirfs in there when he was injured.
Well, I'm going to show you a Tristan Wirfs
They
play.
blew out the Eagles.
Huh? Okay, but they did not play well. And you know what? We're kind of peeking ahead here because if they don't play like this against Aaron Donald gang, you got a big problem. Ryan Jensen, everybody's favorite center, okay? He'd love it. What is this?
He thought the left guard was going to stick.
Whatever. It's the communication problem, and that's on the center.
It's not on the center. It's on both. But
Okay. Brady making excuses for every player in the NFL.
I'm just explaining to you
Okay,
what Ali
make an
Marpet
excuse for Ali Marpet right here. Please make an excuse for him. And by the way, this is Tristan Wirfs, And the reason I'm showing part of that is
that's when he's injured.
and that's right, and that's what I'm saying.
What is this meter we have on this thing? A 99 on the meter? What is that?
By the way, if he's going to play like that, that's a problem. Here we go.
Is that a spinning top meter that we have?
Here's a little stunt inside. Tommy's doing his ducking. They didn't pick it up. Terrible. And here we got. This is the replacement for Tristan Wirfs if he can't play. Josh Wells. He was in Jacksonville. He is one of the ultimate spinning tops. There you go.
Yeah, Kerrigan took advantage of him. Clearly, he's going to give.
And the reason I put Wirfs on there. Wirfs is a great player. He's a Pro Bowl. All Pro right tackle. Don't get me wrong. He's been fantastic. But I put that play in there. It wasn't real just him. It was on Marpet on that play as well. But the reason I put that play there is if he plays this week and he's hurt, is that going to be a problem against Floyd and Miller?
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
So, and that's why you could see he couldn't set, right, Brady? He couldn't put his foot
No,
down.
honestly, it was dangerous that he was able to convince them to let him go back out on the field, not only for him, but also for Tom Brady. You're putting your quarterback in a bad spot. And I know as a tackler, you want to be tough. They play through a lot all the time. You give him all the credit in the world. And he's obviously one of those tough guys that you look for, especially when you're trying to draft or sign your team. The reality is, he should have not been out there. I don't know, the extent of the injury or what's wrong, but especially if it could make it worse. Because it looked like he was, majorly limping and not even put any weight on it. So I don't expect him to play. I think that's going to be one of the issues.
If Wells is playing, that's a problem for the Bucs. And here's the other thing. That's a good offensive line. That's why they were the spinning tops of the week. They didn't play that well. They really didn't. They're better than what they played in that game.
And spinning it forward to the game against the Rams, who have a great defensive front. The Bucs are 3-point favorites in this game. The Rams won the only regular season meeting.
Well, and it all starts with the conversation we're having right now. Is Tristan Wirfs playing or not? He's one of their best offensive linemen. If you look at the scheme of what Raheem Morris likes to do with that front, and it's really to take the ability or take away the opportunity to put two guys on Aaron Donald. So they're going to get a 5-man front, and they're going to get to it in a variety of ways. It's going to be either with their defensive line, covering up the center and both guards, and then walking up, an end or backer, or they're going to take a backer and walk them up over the center, and you'll be in your typical 4-down front. So no matter how they go about getting to it, they're going to find ways of getting one-on-ones, so you can't double Donald, you can't double Von Miller, you can't, double Leonard Floyd. All those guys are going to have those one-on-one opportunities, and that's a problem. If we've seen where Tom Brady's faltered in the playoffs, it's getting pressure, getting hits on him, and that's the reality of the last time these two teams played. They got a lot of pressure on Tom Brady. He was sacked, I believe, 3 times, and that's what you're expecting if Tristan Wirfs can't go.
Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. Because when Tom Brady starts seeing ghosts, you got problems. And we've seen it before in his career. He's the greatest of all time. He really is. He's the best quarterback who's ever played. Some people will say he's the best football player ever played. But Brady made a good point. When he starts seeing those ghosts, and I'm talking about bodies coming around him, he starts doing his ducking. You saw a little bit of it on that highlight. Then you have issues. So I'm with you, Brady. If they can't protect on this defensive line, that's going to be a problem all game long. And it's not just Donald. Von Miller's starting to play like Von Miller again.
6 sacks last 6 games?
Yeah, and so Leonard Floyd can rush the passer. And so Gaines is good on the interior.
Yeah.
They can get after it, and I think that's going to be a problem for Tom Brady. I really do.
The other problem that they're going to have is they don't have Chris Godwin. And if you go back to the last time these two teams matched up, you saw Jalen Ramsey, obviously, in man coverage will match up time to time. Now that's just Mike Evans the entire game. He's going to try to eliminate Mike Evans from being that target to go to. There's no AP anymore. There's obviously no Godwin.
Will they, though? Because they don't use him like that. They use him in the
situationally, they will. And that's the difference between winning and losing games. 3rd down, staying on the field, red zone, being able to convert. And that's where it's going to be different. It's going to be harder for them to score than it was the first time around. Even then, again, they struggled in this matchup. So the way I'm looking at it is I think they've got to figure out a way of running the football. Take the attack to Aaron Donald. Take the attack to the Rams. And if they can't run the football, that's when they're going to be in a world of hurt because I don't think the secondary for the Bucs is going to be able to hang with the passing attack the way they're operating right now. Matt Stafford's got a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence the way they're playing.
I've always said the Rams are a little defense, and you can run on them. You can push them around. So I'm with you. Run the ball at them. Go right at them because if you're not going at them, then you got problems because they're fast, they're athletic, they can run to the football, and then they start teeing off on you. So I'm with you 100%. The Bucs need to run the football. The ball got out quick last week, so the Bucs clearly were concerned about what was going on up front. I think that's going to be a strategy again, and I'm with you on the other side. This is another game, if you block them, you beat them, right? Because they're having issues in the back end. And the Bucs haven't been great rushing the passer this year either. Last week, you weren't here, but The Rams were the spinning tops of the week on the interior. They bounced back and actually played pretty good last week. So kudos to them. They must have been paying attention. I called them out, and they listened.
They're going to
Bulletin board
They're
material.
going to be challenged this week, though.
They are, particularly on the interior, with those two guys, with Vea and Sue on the
Pete, you're taking the Rams plus the 3. Are you taking them to win the game?
Yes. I think the Rams win the game.
outright.
Rams win the game
You know,
outright.
it's funny. The Rams right now, the way they've played to finish the season, even though they lost Week 18, they have that feeling of what the Bucs were last year. That talented team who got hot at the end and rolled it all in the roll. Basically, besides one game, but for the Bucs, they were on the road. But for this case, it'd be the Rams on the road from here on out. They kind of remind me of that Bucs team last year, though, and the feeling of it. I'm going on the other side, though. I'm going to lay the 3 points here with the Bucs. It's Tom Brady, and I have a hard time ever.
It's hard to pick against them.
Brady.
It's hard to pick against them.
Despite some of the issues they're dealing with offensively, everything else, I'm not betting against Brady.
Best 5 players in the game. 5 stars.
Tom Brady, it starts there.
One, then what is
And then the rest goes all to the Rams.
Cup,
Well,
Donald,
Cup,
Cup.
Ramsey, Donald,
Ramsey.
et cetera. I mean, it's all the Rams after.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an advantage, big advantage.
But it is in Tampa, home field advantage for the Bucs, which they didn't need last postseason. Pete likes the Rams to win outright. Brady likes the Buccaneers to cover the 3 points at home. Sunday, CBS, 6:30 Eastern Time. It's a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Pete, you picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl going into the season, and the Bills landed the first blow early this season in Kansas City. They showed Kansas City that, hey, we're a different team this season, but Kansas City's a different team than they were earlier this season.
Give me this for about 8 hours. I want to watch this game. I mean, this is everything and anything that I love in football. You have 2 gunslinger quarterbacks who love to throw the football around and 2 teams that will throw the football around. I can't wait. This is the best game from my standpoint to watch all weekend. I love this. And I think Buffalo is ready to win again at Kansas City. I know we saw a good Kansas City team last week. That Pittsburgh defense was awful. This defense is very good. Leslie Frazier has the #1 defense in the league. They don't get enough credit for what they've done. Remember they had that little lull in the middle of the season? They turned it on in the second half of the season. They were outstanding last week against Mac Jones. I think they're going to be outstanding here. And I think Josh Allen, these playoffs are his moment. Every quarterback has a moment. We saw Patrick Mahomes a couple years ago. These playoffs are going to be Josh Allen's moment. He's going to have a big day throwing the football. I love Buffalo in this game. By the way, might be in the 60s, the points, 33, 32.
The over is a great play in this one, so I'm with you on that. It's interesting we keep talking about throwing the football because I think one of the things that really helped kickstart things last week for him was Josh Allen running the football. And I think he's really the fire starter for their offense, running the football in general. When he becomes a part of it, whether it's a pass play or design running play for him, I think it opens things up for Devin Singletary. It opens things up and it forces defense to then have to take a guy out of coverage on pass plays, limit how much man-to-man you can play, and that plays to their advantage. So that, to me, is going to be something to keep an eye on in this game, is if Josh Allen takes off early and often and forces the Kansas City defense, which has been playing well, to either have a spy for him or maybe not rush as many and keep someone kind of back, waiting for him to release.
I was going to ask you that. Spagnuolo is known to play man and rush.
Yep.
Play man and rush. Blitz, play man and rush. Do you back off of that plan against him?
I think you've got to change it up because the one thing you don't want Josh Allen to do is to get comfortable or a feel that he knows what's coming. Hey, they're playing a lot of man on third down, 3rd and 4 plus, and they're bringing this type of pressure. Whatever you did the series before, do something different the next time. You don't want him dropping back there and being that confident that he knows what you're going to be doing. And if he sees a lane, he just runs and takes off. So that's with the way you're rushing, the way you're pressuring, and your coverage on the back end. It's going to be one of those Rolodex type games, in my opinion. And I think you have to do that too because you played each other. They are familiar with each other to some degree. You talked about the Bills' defense. They constructed this defense to really beat Kansas City. I mean, let's be honest about it. They know they have the quarterback to do it. It then came down to they have the defense to do it. With the line, the ability to rush, the secondary to cover, that's what this is about. And so it's really all about execution. And look, KC at home's tough to beat. That's why I'm laying the 2 points here. The over, I think, is the best play. But same thing as far as talking about the Bucs and Tom Brady. I have a hard time in the end betting against Andy Reid at home with Patrick Mahomes and the way this offense still can move the football. And I do think I give Pittsburgh more credit what their defense was last week. as far as what Kansas City did against them.
Yeah, they didn't. They got 1 sack last year in the playoff game last year. I mean, they gotta be better than that this time around. I'm talking about Buffalo. I really think you got to be to stop the Chiefs now. You got to keep those other guys from going off because Kelsey's going to get his, Tyreek Hill's going to get his. But lately, we're seeing Pringle get some. We're seeing those other guys all get involved, and Hardman gets some.
I mean, last time it was a combination of Hill, Kelsey, Hardman. It still wasn't enough.
Right.
So you wonder if the addition of a guy like Pringle, how he mixes in, and then the running game.
Right.
I mean, in all honesty, at some point, the Chiefs are going to have to run the football in some crucial moments and be able to make hay.
Buffalo too.
Well, but Buffalo's got Josh Allen. He is more, I guess, apt to want to take off and run and become a part of that. He's a tone setter too when he gets out there. He'll lay someone down or he'll make someone miss. I think Patrick Mahomes is a little bit more reluctant. He will, but you really got to force him to do that.
Right.
Different story.
Chiefs have been to 2 straight Super Bowls. They've been to 3 straight AFC championship games. Pete thinks that comes to an end. Both those streaks come to an end in this game, which could be, the winner of this game might go on to win the championship. Winner is going to likely be the favorite to come out of the AFC for sure and probably win the whole thing. Let's get your best bet for the entire divisional round. And Pete, I'm going to start with you because it's that game. I know you love the Bills. You said that. The Bills +2, Bills money line. But it's the total in that game that you really love.
I think this thing soars over the total. I can't imagine that it doesn't. These 2 quarterbacks are playing at a high level. These 2 offenses are playing at a high level. And I know the defenses have been good, particularly the Chiefs later in the season, the Bills all year. I just think quarterbacks show up in the postseason. Star quarterbacks really show up. Both guys will play well. I think this goes over the total.
Weather would play a factor. If it's supposed to be bad, I believe it's supposed to be like 45 and sunny. So it's perfect. It shouldn't be a bad atmosphere either.
How come when I went to the Chiefs to cover playoff games, it wasn't 45 and sunny? It was more like 12 below.
I don't know, man. I lived out there for a year. The weather's crazy. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't like that.
I'm taking, obviously, I made the call earlier that the Bengals don't only cover, they outright win. So the best bet is take the points. Take the 3.5 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Because
you're on the bandwagon.
That's not that I'm on the bandwagon. I just think it's a favorable matchup for what Cincinnati does well and really what the Titans don't do well, especially if they get down early in this one. So that to me is the best bet. I'm betting on Joey B, Joey Franchise, whatever.
First road playoff game for Joey B.
Well, that's fine. I don't think he's bothered by any of them.
I don't either.
I mean, he wears sunglasses at night.
That's why I said not one, but no, I never said 2.
You did
said multiple.
I said
multiple titles for the Bengals.
He played the video.
Right now, Pete, it's looking good. It's looking like they're a contender this season.
Pete doesn't even believe it's going to happen this year.
That's true.
No, I don't think it's happening this year.
You have them losing outright.
I don't think it's happening this year. But I do think they will win one in the next decade.
Well, you can't say the next decade. When you said that, that was 2 years ago.
Years.
So there'd be 7 years left.
Right. 8 years. 8.
All right. Well, fellas, it's been fun. Let's recap the picks for the Sunday games in the divisional round and the best bets for the divisional round. There is no agreement at all on anything from these guys other than the over in the Bills-Chiefs game. The over 54.5. And you heard Brady say, weather's not going to be a factor. Weather's going to be fine. It's probably not going to be the case in Green Bay where the temperatures are in the single digits. Brady's best bet, Cincinnati plus the 3.5. He thinks the Bengals will win outright and go to the AFC Championship game for the first time since '88.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.